Hey everyone, me Kevin here. This is really interesting. Take a look at this. It's one of the posts I just made on HouseHack. If you haven't heard about it yet, go to HouseHack.com. It's where we're dumping our research. But take a look at this. And it's totally free, and it's always going to be totally free. That's my promise, HouseHack.com. But look at this. Investors have piled into cash. Money market funds have shown a record inflow of cash this year. As you can see, the blue bars right here represent inflows into money markets. But here's what's really interesting. Listen to this. Goldman Sachs is estimating that $95 billion have flown into U.S. stocks in 2023. And so a comparison that I wrote over here is that Elon Musk sold around $24 billion of Tesla in 2022. The stock market only saw barely 4 times that in 2023. So the entire U.S. stock market in 2023 has only seen 4 times what Elon sold in 2022. Now, obviously, that either means Elon sold a lot, or the stock market's getting very few inflows. And the reality is, while it's probably a mix of both, Elon did sell a lot. The reality is, it's been really tough for people to allocate new money to the stock market because why would you when there's so many uncertainties? Russia, Ukraine, Israel, inflation, is it coming down? Is it going to go back up? Is this 1974 all over again? And we just walking into getting Paul Volckered? Of course, my thesis is no, because back then we left the gold standard. We came off price caps. We had a horrible, how should I say, management of monetary policy following the leaving of the gold standard. And I'm not saying monetary and fiscal policy is any better today, okay? There's a lot that leaves to be desired over there. It's just that conditions today are virtually the opposite of what we faced back then. Conditions back then were that inflation expectations were skyrocketing through the roof because people didn't have any faith at all in the government or our monetary policy. Today, at least there's some faith. Again, I'm not saying it's high, and I'm not here to shill for the government or the Fed. I'm just saying inflation expectations are so low on both the bond market's allocation of expectations, but also sentiment surveys. Inflation expectations briefly spiked after Israel, but have plummeted since. In fact, if we look at the 5-year break even, for example, which is the bond market's expectations for inflation, forget about consumers or individuals, we're sitting at about 2.2%. Yeah, they've come up a slight bit because of tension off of the coast of Yemen, but we're still near year's lows. Why? Because yes, even though oil prices have started ticking up a little bit and there are trade fears that we are going to see some temporary inflationary pops on headline reads because of tension in the Middle East, again, driving oil prices up, the big picture is that there's a lot of rationale that says nobody wanted to invest in stocks in 2023 because there were so many uncertainties. And there still are uncertainties. And 2024 is an election year, so you also have those uncertainties. But consider this for a moment. We put all of that aside for a moment. Consider this. These money market rates, as interest rates come down, are going to come down as well. At the same time as those rates come down, we are going to see individuals look and say, well, what did the stock market do in 2023 for people who aren't regularly attuned to the stock market in 2023? And what they're going to see is, oh my gosh, how did the NASDAQ 100 go up 53% in 2023? How did Tesla year to date go up 137%? Coinbase stock year to date 341% year to date. Microsoft 54%. Apple year to date 55%. Point is, sitting out the stock market in 2023 was actually very punishing. And if there's a record amount of cash on the sidelines, there is a strong thesis that as long as inflation continues to trend down, that money will circulate into stocks in 2024. And that is leading Goldman Sachs to say, well, as long as we don't, let me say that, I'll tell you what Goldman Sachs said in a moment. I just want to say, this is all predicated on not having a shock that leads to larger unemployment. Because if we have an unemployment shock, we're probably leaning more towards a recession. And there are the risks that right now employment is heavily skewed towards government, healthcare, and education, which there's a lot of government and healthcare as well. So you're kind of at late cycle employment gains, which isn't great because we wonder how long that's sustainable. And if those gains go away, do we potentially go to negative job gains, which is bad? It's a recessionary indicator and potentially self-fulfills more unemployment. a doom loop cycle. One layoff cycle leads to more layoffs and more layoffs and more layoffs. Fortunately, we've kind of had a lot of layoffs behind us, so hopefully we're not going into that direction. Hopefully most of the pain is behind us, but that's a risk. But what Goldman here says is, look at global inflation trends. Global inflation trends on a month-over-month annualized, on a core basis, mind you, and a 3-month annualized basis have plummeted. But not only have they plummeted, if you actually zoom into these, you'll find that global inflation is sitting at just 2.2% for the last 3 months annualized. That's basically at 2% target, and just 1.3% for November. Now, in fairness, if you go a little bit deeper and you look at what JP Morgan said this morning for Rally, he suggested, hey, we got to be careful though, because Supercore is still running a little hot. Last 3-month average, Supercore, which is taking out housing and the housing disinflation we're getting, which is also a very volatile metric, Supercore, is running hotter, closer to maybe 4 to 5% annualized. And while it is true, that's something we want to pay attention to, the broader trend is down. This is why also in the catalyst section, if you jump down on HouseHack to catalyst, I talk about multivariate core inflation. And this is where you can actually remove housing and just see services x housing. And when you look at the United States and you actually look at this trend, you can see that yes, even though it's volatile, that red line trend is clearly down. So of course, if you haven't been watching HouseHack yet, make sure to go to ehack.com. You can see some other Tesla updates and some other news here as well. But these are some very interesting charts from Goldman Sachs, and it explains why Goldman is so optimistic about actually risk assets going up, that they've raised their S&P 500 price target 9% in just the past 4 weeks. Now, keep in mind, they're only looking at 3 rate cuts. They think we're going to get 3 rate cuts in March, May, and June of 25 basis points each, basically 3 back-to-back cuts. But they think the Fed's going to stop and pause there. And the reason they think the Fed's going to stop and pause there is because the growth trajectory that Goldman has is actually a lot higher than the Bloomberg consensus. That most banks and economists think growth will only be around 0.7%, whereas Goldman suggests no. We think growth in 2024 will actually be 2%, which is actually really important for earnings of US stocks, is that you have growth. Now, another thing that we could potentially, or should look at here, is the odds of getting 5 rate cuts. That would be bringing rates all the way down to 4 to 4.25%. The odds of getting to that level by December of 2024, based on what the market is pricing in right now, 5 rate cuts. Ready for this? 87.3%. Yeah. So the market is almost fully pricing in a full 5 rate cuts. Goldman is suggesting 3, but only because they think earnings will be higher and the economy will be stronger. Now, unfortunately, I'd like to be balanced here, and unfortunately, there isn't a lot of bearishness to cover right now. The biggest bearishness to cover is what's going on with the Houthis. So to balance this video out, I'd just like to point you also to ehack.com, where, actually, I think I had a whole piece on this yesterday. Here it is. Houthi attacks are intensifying. This is a big deal. You could read all about this again, ehack.com. It's totally free. I don't make any money from it. It's a great tool. I love it. It's actually a great tool for us as well, because we have all our thoughts in one place. So we use it as a team tool, but we may as well share it with the community. But anyway, why does this matter? Well, why do the Houthi attacks over here matter in this strait right here that is 18 miles wide at the thinnest point? Easy to launch attacks. We have US destroyers in the region shooting down drones and involved in the defense of shipping lanes. But that still hasn't stopped BP from saying, for example, we'll just go all the way around the coast of Africa, which lengthens shipping timeframes, increases costs. It's why the shipping companies are seeing their stocks go up, like Zim or Maersk or whatever, because they're like, they're just going to pass the cost on to the consumer, which is inflationary, or their customer. But anyway, if you look over here, about 12% of seaborne traded oil and 8% of liquefied natural gas passes through this area. This is a lot of an energy market that goes through here. While it may not necessarily be a supply concern for everything like the Strait of Hormuz, it is a concern for energy prices. And so that's why, at least recently through trades, we're seeing this. Rabobank had a thesis that if the United States stops defending in this area, this could get a lot worse. They're right. They could get worse if the United States stops defending here, but the US knows that, and I wouldn't be surprised if you actually get a step up of defenses in this area. In fact, there's talk about the United States authorizing Australia to go to this region with warships to help defend this shipping route. So we'll see, but this will be something everybody's paying attention to in the near term. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I got a jet to a big inspection, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.
Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is neither personalized financial advice nor real estate advice for you. It is not tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice tailored to you. This video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. Any third-party content I show should not be deemed endorsed by me. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purpose of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products are either paid affiliations or products or services which we may benefit from. I personally operate an actively managed ETF and hold long positions in various securities, potentially including those mentioned in this video. However, I have no relationship to any issuers other than HouseHack, nor am I presently acting as a market maker.